Okay, let's talk about intuition. What is it and how can you improve it? And what are the obstacles to actually get in touch with your intuition? And intuition, in a sense, is trust in yourself. And the biggest obstacles we have to reaching our intuition is that we listen so much to other people. We think what other people will say, we care about their opinions, and we quite frankly forget about ourselves because we are so outward focused. The way you can test how good your intuition is to sit still with your eyes closed for 30 minutes. And for most people, there's an unease that arrives. There's this anxiety and this weird feeling of not being safe. And that's actually the block to your intuition. I know from experience, before I started to meditate and before I started to actually listen to myself, the way I see myself, the things I want to do, I had no clue about my intuition. And the funny thing with intuition is that sometimes it's so strong that it just comes true. It kind of penetrates all these walls. So we all have experiences when our intuition was right. We just know something and then it happens. But we can strengthen this, and it has a lot to do with finding your purpose, because if you don't have a connection to your intuition and to your inner world, how can you know what your purpose is? How can you ever really feel purposeful? So, by sitting still with your mind, quieting it down, and observing, there starts to come small clues. Once you start to practice this and sit with it, there will come more clarity about the whole issue. And it's about trust. And the thing that our rational mind will sometimes do is that we start to listen to our intuition, and then it leads us to some bad experience. And we're like, oh shit, this wasn't good. I want to avoid those things in the future, so I don't listen to my intuition anymore because I want to feel safe. So I outsource my decisions and things to other people, and that's when you essentially lose yourself. The reason why your intuition sometimes leads you to these negative events is that you have something to learn there. There is some kind of issue you need to resolve. Once you start acknowledging that all the things that happen in your life are for you and not against you, this is when you get into the field of trust. And this is where your true intuition lies. So, trust is another concept that can be really tricky for people because it's really difficult to trust the trust kind of field, because you can think of it as a field. If you tap into the trust field, then you show the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, that there is a connection. Trust is about connection to the bigger picture. But we all have experiences when trust is lost and we're betrayed, and we have all kinds of experiences why we can't trust. And a lot of the times it's external things we can't trust, but a really common one is that we don't trust ourselves. It's so sad that we don't do that, because when we're kids, we essentially trust ourselves and we trust our instincts, we trust our intuition. But then we grow up, and depending on the family and the situation and the surroundings, we end up dealing with different issues. And trust is usually one of those things that goes out of the window. So we need to learn to trust again. But we can't really start trusting ourselves if we constantly are listening to other people. We are listening to science, we are listening to religion, we are listening to the news. So this kind of puts ourselves in this victim mindset because we are not the ones who are ruling our life. We are externalizing it because of some fear that I probably don't know best myself. I have to ask someone. And I've been there. I've struggled so much with this, especially after I turned 30 and kind of entered this adulthood life and parenthood, all these things. It was really difficult for me to trust myself. But then I remember when I was skateboarding and snowboarding, I used to just get inspired by others and then I did whatever I want. And I've lived kind of this street lifestyle life. So I had a really strong intuition and an inner voice, but then somehow I let it get away because I thought that this is just kid stuff and I need to become an adult and I need to take responsibility, so I need to start listening to other people. What a big mistake that was, and I'm lucky I'm starting to kind of wake up of that thing, because listening to my intuition and really starting to trust myself, I understand it's the only path. Like, if I don't choose this path right now, I might regret it after 10 or 20 years because I might do what my parents want me to do, or I might do what society wants me to do. That's not living my life. That's living a life that someone else is gonna dictate for me. So, focusing on improving your intuition, sitting still, listening to yourself, questioning everything, that's how you actually start to trust and learn about yourself. And this is essentially where you're gonna find a deeper sense of purpose, even if you have a sense of purpose already. And when you start going deeper into yourself, these quiet places, there's gonna be shadows that come up. And sometimes we think that we have a certain purpose, but actually we are avoiding a certain shadow, and it's so easy to run away from that shadow instead of facing it because it's so scary. And we can go into kind of this superficial purpose and then a deeper meaning purpose that it has to do with how deep the actual purpose is inside of you. And one good test just comes up in mind right now is that if people question your purpose and what you do you start questioning yourself? The people who have the deepest sense of purpose are the people who don't care how much someone questions them because they have an internal source for what they do. I've actually learned these things from an external source. I have a partner who's really independent and she has this really strong internal voice and intuition that she follows, and somehow she gets more content and happy all the time. And I'm like, how the hell does this work like this? And this is essentially why I'm also starting to realize that turning inwards and being courageous and taking those risks myself based on my own evaluation and based on my intuition is gonna be the only way for me to feel fulfilled and happy and purposeful in life. So this unease that we feel is actually a good sign that we're going in the right direction, because the unease only tells us that there's so much that we haven't actually processed. There's so much inside of us that we haven't shed any awareness on, and that's why it feels uneasy. And this is kind of anxiety is only a thing that hasn't been resolved. It's something unfamiliar, it's unexpected, and this is why the unease is there. But once you get to a level of trust, the uneasiness kind of fades away, because you know that whatever this feels like, it might be really uncomfortable, it's there for a good reason. So the whole purpose with this video is that you need to start trusting. You need to start trusting yourself. And this can be a really long path, but once you start, there isn't really no going back. when you realize that in the long run, you need to trust yourself. Otherwise, you will be just a puppet in the system and everybody else will use you. And I believe that this is the change we're going through right now in the world. There's so many people waking up to not being these puppets anymore. And they're like, yo, I want to start to trust myself and listening to myself, because all these mass media and this systematic living isn't really serving us the best way it could. I'm happy to be one of the people in this movement. So listening to your intuition, that's your inner guide, that's your compass. And once you start believing that you have one, it's gonna strengthen, and it's like a muscle. You can train it, and then sometimes it might lead you to a really negative experience, and then you probably have something you have to learn there. What's the lesson in that negative experience? And that way you can keep on trusting your intuition, because you know that it eventually will lead you to the things that you actually need in life. So from uneasiness to intuition and trust, that's kind of the path to clarity. The whole concept is actually from these Gene Keys teachings, and if you want to go deeper into these, it's the Gene Keys 57, and it's fascinating when you start trusting yourself. This video is made by just trusting my inner voice to be like, okay, I feel like this is something I need to do, and then I just do it. The shorter the time from intuition to action, the more you're gonna start trusting that it actually works. My name is Mitz, your future purpose, here to help you find more fulfillment, joy, passion, purpose in life.